How important is it to be, sorry, how important is daring, originality, and innovation in writing?
I think it's the most important, absolutely the most important things in writing. You know, so much has been done before and redone, and you see someone who comes out there like, an alien comes in, let's be innovative, let's be daring, let's be original. And let's look at some of the things that were innovative, daring, and original in that. You had characters, and this really hadn't been done that much in science fiction at this point, who were blue-collar people and who were also not necessarily very likable people. The characters in there, if you look at it, none of them are heroes. They're real people. And they're not believable people. They're real people. They're true, And rather than making them sympathetic, they make them interesting. Before they were always trying to make them sympathetic. It's like, no, we're going to make them real people. And it gave the movie a heightened sense of reality. That this could be me stuck on this spaceship, fighting this terrible alien, and that's what made the film, one of the things that made the movie just so scary, was you felt like these are real people and this is really happening. But the thing that was innovative and daring and original about that, most of all, was the fact that they had a woman as the sole survivor at the end of the film. Just unthinkable. Prior to that, particularly in a science fiction movie, the science fiction film, the genre, the format, the formula. The captain's the hero. The captain saves the day. You look at The Thing from Another World, the military man who's in charge of this mission. He figures it out. He comes up with a plan. He solves the problem, But you look at Alien, okay, Tom Skerritt. He figures out what the problem is. He comes up with a plan. He bravely, single-handedly goes down to the air vents to kill the alien. And, the audiences of the day, they absolutely thought this was going to be the end of the movie. He was going to kill the alien, problem solved, movie over. And then he ends up the next victim. And the whole audience, when they were watching that at the time, were just shocked. They're like, wait a minute, that wasn't supposed to happen? He's the hero. Oh my God, these guys are getting creamed. And then it's like, then more of them are getting killed. It's like, wait a minute, this isn't supposed to be happening. But that added to that sense of, panic, that everything's just backsliding badly. And as it goes, it's backsliding faster, as you get to the end of the film. But that was what worked about it. And it worked because, the writer at the time didn't understand the genre. It's like he broke the rules. So it was daring, it was innovative, it was original, and it worked. So that's what I'd like, and if you're going to do a genre, do a twist, an interesting twist on stuff that's already been there, which they did with Austin Powers, and I thought did quite well. It's a spoof on the whole James Bond spy genre. But the thing that they made it work was they just took it so over the top, and they pointed out just how silly and stupid these films really are, in detail all the way through. Like where Dr. Evil has the elaborate plan to kill Austin Powers. Mm-hmm. And his son says, Scott Evil, I've got a gun upstairs. I go up there, I get it, shoot both of them in the head, they're dead. And he's like, shh. He's like, but shh.
Yeah, sharks with laser beams. Right?
Well, these irritable sea bass with laser beams, And it's like, but he's making fun of how stupid these genres are, And as we think about him, and he points them out, it's like, yeah, this is ridiculous. How do we ever get sucked into this? Mm-hmm. So it was an interesting twist on an old idea, but he made it work because it was interesting enough, it was innovative enough, to where it worked, and it was just funny as hell too. Let's not kid ourselves. That was a very funny movie. Yeah. By the way, I got to talk with the people who made that, and they said they actually put the flower in the opening scene, because they knew I liked flowers, as kind of a, as a way to make me happy.
I don't remember the flower.
Well, that was at the beginning where Austin's dancing around and he freeze frames, and they have the little psychedelic flower, at the very opening scene of the movie. And I told them, I actually laughed my head off because it was just so ridiculous. It was just so over the top, And it's like, the whole flower power 60s thing, I was like, watching that, I was almost crying. I was laughing so hard. I was just... Stop! You're killing me! It's ridiculous, but it was brilliant in its ridiculousness, Mm-hmm. But yeah, but that's when but let me re-hit this point again. Innovation, daring, and originality, that's the first thing you should think about when you want to put a project together. Am I doing that? And if I'm not, why am I even bothering?
Good point. So we're talking about show business, and it's both entertainment and business, and those two sometimes come into conflict. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, that happens a lot. It's interesting because, this is something I'm dealing with right now. And it's funny because I'm working with this director, and he's saying, we're doing this type of movie, it's this genre, and typically it makes this amount of money. It's a business projection plan. But it's like, it's like the whole 50s thing where they knew that if you made a science fiction movie for $100,000, you'd make $200,000 minimum, maybe a little more, but, you knew you'd double your money. So you made a lot of really cheap, low-budget, really bad science fiction movies, during the 50s. And science fiction got a very bad reputation as a result. It was considered, I'm not making this up, a notch above porno. It's considered that bad. John Agger, when his career fell apart, he did science fiction movies. That was all he could get, If you know who John Agger is, he was Shirley Temple's husband.
Okay.
He'd get drunk almost every night, beat her up, and, that was, and then they got divorced. But yeah, the end of his career was science fiction. He did the mole people, he knew he'd hit rock bottom. But then science fiction came into its own at the 70s with directors like Stanley Kubrick making movies. Robert Weiss helped, and also Doug Trumbull. And I say this to this day. Trumbull, it's funny to me that he has such a bad reputation as a director. Because if you look at his track record, it's really not that bad. He had Silent Running was a cult classic. Okay, you really liked Brainstorm. I liked it too, but it didn't. It just broke even as a film, pretty much. And it's like they decided, okay, he's a terrible director. No more films for him. He got the ride thing. The Back to the Future ride. Where he directed that because he was doing the special effects. And he said, I'll do it for one price. I've directed 2 feature films. And they said, oh, okay. Couldn't find anything wrong with that. Save us money, save having to pay someone to direct it, too. So he got the job on that. But I thought that was as good as what Spielberg did, with the Back to the Future rides. I really felt Trumbull really got, and other people have said this in the science fiction community, they really felt he got the short end of the stick, that he never really got the respect he deserved as a director. And it's funny because, when I go to conventions to this day, people still say, when they're debating who's the best science fiction director of all time, a lot of them give it to Doug Trumbull over George Powell, Spielberg, Lucas, any of them, I'm like, Brainstorm was a lot better film, you'll agree with me on this, I think, than Howard the Duck.
Howard the Duck. Strain to remember.
Because we don't want to.
I remember a duck and a lobster.
I remember ducking from the theater.
So, you like to write on spec?
Yes.
What did Joe Esterhaus have to say about that?
Well, he felt that that's absolutely what writers should do. You see, let me explain to people who don't know.
Sure, what is spec?
Okay, well, I'll explain what writing for money is,
Okay.
You come to the studios, and they'll either have a story idea that they want you to write, or you'll come to them and you give them a treatment, and they'll take the treatment, if they like it, and they'll pay you to write the rest of the screenplay. But the thing is, and I agree with Esterhaus on this entirely, if you believe in the project, just sit down and write it. You're writers, that's what you're supposed to do. And spec scripts do get produced. And a lot of times they're the best films out there. Alien was a spec script. Silent Running was a spec script. Esterhaus has 5 scripts. 6 as it was, and that were produced, and they were all spec scripts. Basic Instinct was a spec script. Telling Lies in America, which I loved. And a lot of people condemned. I thought it was a great film. That was also a spec script. So my feeling on it is absolutely. If you believe in the project, write it. Write on spec.